A woman in Scotland accused of summoning storms is said to haunt a palace to this day. In the Caribbean, a creature sheds her skin and hunts sleeping victims for their blood. And in Mississippi, a mysterious witch cursed an entire town as she sank into quicksand. 20 years later, something happened. These are disturbing stories about witches from history. Agnes Sampson was called the wise wife of Keith. She was a midwife and healer, someone people actually went to for help. But in 1590, King James VI came back from Denmark terrified that witches had tried to sink his ship during a storm. A few women were arrested and tormented until they started naming names, and one of them mentioned Agnes. So she was dragged away and accused of witchcraft. In prison, she was stripped, shaved, and kept awake for days. They pointed to an old scar on her neck as proof of the so-called devil's mark, and their brutal treatment of her continued until she just told them everything they wanted to hear. It was a false confession. She said she met the devil and was responsible for summoning storms. And to add credibility to his belief in witchcraft, King James told everyone that Agnes had repeated details from his private wedding night that she couldn't have possibly known about. On January 28, 1591, Agnes was executed. Locals say her ghost still roams Holyrood Palace. In Caribbean folklore, especially in Trinidad and Guyana, there are tales of a blood-sucking hag called the Soucouyant. During the day, she appears as a regular old woman, but when night comes, she goes home and begins her ritual. She peels off her skin, folds it up and hides it inside a wooden mortar, the kind people use to grind herbs. Then she becomes this ball of fire and shoots across the night sky looking for houses where people are sleeping. She doesn't need doors or windows because she can compress herself down and slip through any opening, a crack in the wall, the gap under a door, a keyhole. Once she's inside, she hovers over sleeping people and drains their blood. And you either die, or if she takes just the right amount, you become like her, another Soucouyant. There are two ways to kill her. The first is to find her hidden skin before she comes back at dawn, pour coarse salt all over it, coating every inch, and when she returns and tries to put her skin back on, it'll burn her. The salt makes it impossible for her to wear it again, and she'll die in agony as the sun comes up. The second method is to scatter rice or salt grains across your doorstep. If she tries to enter, she'll be compelled to count every single piece. She'll crouch there counting as the night passes, and if she doesn't finish before sunrise, she'll be destroyed by the daylight. Back in the late 1800s, folks in Yazoo City, Mississippi whispered about a woman who lived alone near the Yazoo River. Nobody knew her name, and just that she was mean, ugly, and mostly kept to herself. And when fishermen would go missing, their boats found drifting empty, people began to suspect the old woman of witchcraft. One day in 1884, a boy named Joe Bob Duggett floated past her house on a raft and heard this horrible moaning inside. When he peeked through the window, he saw two dead men on the floor and the old woman dancing and chanting in the middle of the room, covered in dirt and weeds. Terrified, he ran to town to get the sheriff. When they returned, the bodies were gone, but upstairs they found dozens of crazed cats. There were fish bones everywhere and two human skeletons hanging from the rafters. Then they saw her fleeing into the swamps. When they finally caught up with her, she was sinking into quicksand. Right before she went under, she screamed, "I'll return and burn this town down," on May 25th, 1904. Her body was pulled out and buried in the town cemetery, wrapped in heavy chains, just in case she got up and started moving around again. Well, 20 years passed, and life went on. People started to forget about the curse, or at least they stopped talking about it. But then came May 25th, 1904. That day, there was a fire in town. It spread impossibly fast, consuming building after building. By the time it burned itself out, the entire downtown was gone. Witnesses who saw it said flames jumped through the air from one building to another, carried by winds that seemed supernaturally strong. The next morning, a group of townsfolk went to Glenwood Cemetery to check on the witch's grave. And that chain that had sealed her coffin was snapped clean in two. The Obayifo comes from West African folklore, particularly among the Ashanti people in Ghana. They look completely normal most of the time, but there are some signs if you know what to watch for. Obayifo are said to have shifty eyes. They're constantly looking around. They also have this intense fixation on food, especially meat. They'll talk about it constantly. They have an almost obsessive interest in meals. The old stories actually warned regular people to avoid acting this way, because if the community suspected you were an Obayifo, they'd kill you. At night, while traveling around in search of its prey, they give off an eerie phosphorescent blue glow. What they're hunting for is life force, the soul itself. They particularly target children. A healthy child will go to sleep one night, and by morning, they're sick with a fever. Some say it's because an Obayifo found them and drained their soul while they slept. And a fun little detail about this thing, where do you think the blue glow comes from? You'd probably expect it to be, their eyes, or just, coming from all around them. But no, the light emanates from their armpits and their anus. In Polish folklore, there's the Strzyga. According to legends, Strzyga is born with two souls inhabiting one body. They'll also usually have 2 rows of teeth, sometimes 2 hearts beating in the same chest. However it manifests, though, everyone knows immediately that this child is marked. When a Strzyga dies, only one of the souls leaves the body. The second soul stays trapped inside the corpse, unable to move on. And that second soul has a rage that reanimates the dead body, forcing it to rise again, creating something that exists in the space between life and death. At night, the Strzyga tears her way out of whatever grave they're buried in. Sometimes she takes the form of an owl flying through the darkness. Other times, she becomes this kind of hybrid version, half woman, half bird. She hunts travelers, especially people who wander off the main roads at night, and it kills its victims as brutally as possible, tearing them open and eating them from the inside out. Deep in the jungles of Guyana, there's a spirit called the Bush Dai Dai. She looks like a beautiful woman, calm, graceful, completely out of place in the middle of the wilderness. You wouldn't find her near villages or trails. She stays deep in the jungle in the parts people rarely go. She only appears to men who wander too far from safety. She'll come up to him offering to help or ask for directions as if she's lost as well. And she's so charming and beautiful that before long, the guy's forgotten he's even lost. They talk, they laugh, she makes him feel comfortable, even lucky to have wandered into the jungle. By the time night falls, he's completely under her spell. When he finally falls asleep beside her, that's when she changes. Sometimes she becomes a jaguar, sometimes a huge bat with razor teeth. Then she tears him apart. Moral of the story, never let your guard down in the wilderness. You're always prey to something. In 1735, in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, a woman named Deborah Leeds was pregnant with her 13th child. The family was poor, food was scarce, and Deborah was at the end of her rope. So when she realized she was pregnant yet again, she cursed the baby growing inside her. She said out loud that if she had to have another child, she wished it be the devil himself. One night, as rain poured on the roof and wind screamed through the trees, Deborah went into labor. And at first the baby looked normal. It was a regular newborn crying like any other infant, but then the baby started changing. Its body started to twist and mutate, its head elongated and hardened, becoming the head of a goat with horns. Its feet turned into hooves. A forked tail grew from its spine. Massive bat wings tore through its back. The creature attacked everyone in the room and flew at the midwives and Deborah's friends, screeching and clawing. Then it beat its massive wings, rose up through the house, and escaped through the chimney into the storm. It became known as the Jersey Devil. And some versions of this story say that Deborah Leeds was already a practicing witch, and that the devil himself was the father of the child, making it a literal demon offspring. Along the Rio Grande Valley, where Texas meets Mexico, you may hear stories about La Lechuza, also known as the witch owl. La Lechuza is enormous. People describe seeing her, they say she stands about 7 feet tall with a wingspan that can reach 15 feet across. The worst part, though, is her face. Growing out of this massive owl body is the wrinkled ancient face of an old woman. Some say she was a witch who was burnt at the stake and came back as this creature to take revenge. Others say she's a servant of Satan doing his work on earth. Her most dangerous weapon is her voice. At night she'll circle above houses or perch in trees near homes. She makes sounds specifically designed to draw people outside. Sometimes she sounds like a woman crying for help. Other times she mimics a baby wailing. A child might hear what sounds like their mother crying and run outside to help. A neighbor might hear someone in distress and come out with a flashlight, and that's when she strikes. In Japanese folklore, there's the Yamauba, which translates to mountain witch. Most of the time, they look like harmless old ladies. They seem sweet and kind, until they're not. They live alone in little huts along the roads and sometimes help travelers who are lost, tired, or freezing. They'll feed you, give you a warm fire, let you sleep, but once you're out cold, they change. The nice old woman turns into a hideous witch and attacks. The origin of these creatures is rooted in something very real though. Way back in the day, during times of famine, when families were very desperate, the elderly were sometimes taken up into the mountains and left there to die. There's only so much to go around. It was better for the younger ones to survive. So stories usually describe a son carrying his mother on his back, hiking into the cold mountains and leaving her behind with a small bundle of food. It's said that the woman left behind would become bitter and angry, and that rage would slowly transform them into a Yamauba, feeding on humans and practicing dark magic. If you're looking for just pure grotesque body horror in a witch-type creature, nothing beats the Manananggal from the Philippines. The word translates to remover or separator. During the day, she may look like a beautiful woman, but at night, she detaches her entire upper torso from her lower half, and then she grows large bat-like wings and flies off into the night. Her entrails, her heart and lungs and stomach dangling below her. Her primary prey is sleeping pregnant women. She'll also eat human hearts or liver, and the only way to kill this creature is to find her lower half and destroy it with salt, ash, or garlic, preventing her upper torso from reuniting with it before sunrise. All that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.